All right, high rollers, this is going to be special. Our guest today is one of the great stories of the 2017 World Series of Poker main event, perhaps only eclipsed by John Hesp's marvelous performance over the past week or so. This guy wins a contest, gets bought into the biggest tournament in the world by one of the game's true greats, puts on a stellar display, cashes, and is now the talk of the poker world. KL Cleeton joins us. KL, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being our high roller today.
Hey, man, thank you very much for having me.
Man, oh man, what a trip. It's great to be speaking with you today. Has it sunk in yet, man? I mean, you traveled a long way, and you basically did Vegas.
Yeah, honestly, it's just now sinking in. I'm looking back through my Twitter feed. My Twitter feed is kind of like the diary of my Vegas trip, if you will. And it's just now, looking back to the photos and all the love and the support and whatnot from everybody, it just, every time I read something, it's like, man, just instant smile. Ear to ear, my cheeks are starting to hurt just from kind of reliving it. And like I said, the internet is an amazing place, and I really felt, I want to make sure everybody knows, I did read every single tweet, every single word of support, and it helped, push me through, and probably that support is maybe one of the reasons why I was able to cash.
Well, listen, you had a lot of positive vibes going on. If you read every single tweet, I was tweeting about it. Were they coming in from all over the world, like every corner?
Yeah, man, I was getting stuff from Australia, Ireland, Israel. Then those are just the ones I can remember off the top of my head. I mean, literally all over the place. Europe, Asia. I don't know if I saw any African tweets from the African continent, but I'm sure there were a few in there as well. Obviously, South America was well represented. There was, actually, Brazil was one of the first ones on the story whenever Daniel retweeted my original submission. A poker outlet down there called Super Poker did a write-up like almost immediately. Didn't even reach out to me. They just saw the tweet, and yes, they liked the story, and next thing I know, High Hands 89 is mentioned in this random Portuguese article.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell? What is this? So I open it up, I'm not speaking a word of Portuguese, obviously. Hell, I barely speak English. So I did the whole Google Translate, and it was just really neat. They were talking about, information that I had on my Twitch profile, and the funny story, actually, the first day we were in Vegas, the guy who wrote that article, I didn't know who he was, but the kid who wrote that article saw me while we were in line waiting to get some food. We had just gotten there. We'd been there like probably 2 hours. We were famished. So we went down to Guy Fieri's Mexican restaurant in the Rio Casino floor area. And dude comes up and he's like, hey, can I get a photo? And I'm like, this is freaking weird. Like, people take photos with me, man. And he's like, I'm the guy from Super Poker. And I was like, oh my god, Super Poker. Thank you so much. So it was a neat little happy coincidence. One of my first contacts in actual Vegas was one of the first contacts that actually picked up the story of this whole thing. So it was a neat little thing that kind of happened, just pure happenstance.
Nice way to start off the trip. Makes you wonder if it's in the cards sometimes, right? I want you to walk us through the entire experience. I watched every single Daniel Negreanu vlog, as I'm sure you did. It was great behind-the-scenes stuff, a glimpse into the life of a poker superstar, what he's doing at the WSOP. Then he announces this contest. From your vantage point, what's going through your mind when you learned that he was giving away a seat to the main event? What are you thinking at that point?
Honestly, it was one of those things where, it never even occurred to me to even submit. I'm in a poker group, and that poker group basically forced me to do it. They were like, High Hands. We all call each other by our screen names.
By the way, let me just cut you off. I want to plug your Twitter. It's at HighHands89, at HighHands89, and on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/HighHands89. High Hands 89. Okay, so your friends convince you got to go for this.
Exactly. They're like, hey man, you have a really cool, little shtick, if you will. You have to put something in. So I was, I obliged, of course, obviously. And as she was on break during a stream, one of the 5-minute breaks, and so I threw together a little video, had my dad in the background, and I kind of didn't really think about it. I just went back to playing poker and studying, and then a few days later, it just starts doing it went ballistic. It just went absolutely insane. Daniel had retweeted it, and I jumped in the Skype call real quick, and I was like, guys, I think I'm going to the main. They're like, what? Are you kidding? They all freaked out almost more than I did. Obviously, Daniel kind of went, hold on, guys, we haven't decided anything yet. But then as it kind of became closer and closer, I made the finalists, and then, once he finally announced, everybody was like, we already had one person in our group that was going to playing the main, and once I won the seat, everybody in our group we've never met in real life, but everybody just snapped, got plane tickets, and an Airbnb, and so it was really neat for me, not just on a poker level and a meta level of all this support, but it was really neat for me because I got to meet all these really, really good friends that I have that we've never met, IRL. We've never actually hung out in real life. It's all been on Skype. But we were able to get together and basically just, have a real world Skype session in our hotel after day one. And it was an absolute blast. And honestly, I don't think that we would have been able to do that like this without this opportunity. So aside from the meta, amazing experience, just for me on a really personal level, it was really awesome to have that connection, if you will. I'm sorry, getting a little choked up. With some really, really, really good friends. They've really become family at this point. And that was one of the absolute personal highlights for me.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about that because you know poker Twitter. Sometimes it blows up, sometimes it's negative. Poker sometimes gets a bad rap, but from your perspective, and from my perspective as well, poker is an absolutely great community with some great people, and I find that amazing, man. You're in this group of poker players, and you all get to meet at the main event. That's wonderful.
Exactly, it really is. I said it in the vlog, and I've said it on the Twitch stream since then, and I'll continue to say it. It really was the dream. It really, honest to God, I'm not just saying it because it's a cliche. It was living the dream. I got to do something that even a bunch of pros don't get to do. And even if they get to play in it, they don't get to cash it. And I'm not going to say that I was able to make the money because of any particular skill that I had. I ran really well, let's be honest. I flipped well one time, and then I just sucked out another time, pure and simple. But aside from that aspect of it, it was really living the dream and just being able to embrace the ambiance and embrace the experience. You've got hundreds of players, shuffling chips, and you hear that cricket, clatter of chips, and cards and felt and chairs and groans and sighs and excitement and everything, and just that entire experience. If that doesn't give you chills, you need to play a different game.
You got that right, my friend. You have got that right. We're going to talk more about the actual playing experience in a second, but let's go back. I'm watching the vlog, so you're getting this from my perspective. He announces that he's going to give away one seat. He pulls her queen, and I was thinking, oh man, but then a second later he says all three are going. And now you've got to pull a Smokey and the Bandit. You've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. You had an interesting trip to get to Vegas, right? It was in a hurry, let's say.
Yeah, I got slow rolled by Danny Magano. I can't say that. I can say that for sure. But I was happy to take that slow roll. And then, yeah, you're right. It was financially, it was tough for us. Because we weren't in a really great position. So we did that with a bunch of our friends, and then Twitch Poker really came through and helped us out in that respect. But then, like you said, we had a 3.5 day drive. I'm not able to fly, and so we drive from Central Illinois all the way to Vegas, which is 1,700 miles one way, and then of course we have to get home. I didn't win, so I didn't get to stay forever. It was very much 5-6 days notice. So we threw together as much as we possibly could. As far as planning, we had a bit of a hiccup on the way out. The van actually had an electrical issue about 800 miles away from Vegas, and so we were like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" Thankfully, it ended up being able to be resolved, and we made it for my day one on time with not too much of an issue. But you're right, it was a sweat getting out there. We didn't run very well getting out there, but I was able to take it because we ran well once we got out there. And I actually said that while we were at the repair shop. I said, let's run bad now so I can run good in the main. And both my parents thought that sounded like a pretty good idea.
That's a great idea, man. That's the poker advice, right? Listen, I wonder if you can talk briefly about spinal muscular atrophy and how it presents challenges to you, and also about poker. We talked about it before the interview. You made a comment. You said poker is a great equalizer, meaning a guy like you can get right in the mix and bust people, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, spinal muscular atrophy, I can go into all of the medical jargon, but nobody wants to hear that. When you get right down to it, the best way to understand it, at least my version of it, is that something like being paralyzed from the neck down, but I feel everything. So my muscles just don't work. I'm able to move my right thumb a very tiny amount, and that's what I use to drive my wheelchair. So if anybody sees in any of the photos, I have a glove on my right hand. That glove actually has Velcro on the bottom of it, so that way it sticks to the table that it rests on, so it doesn't bounce around and fall off. And I'm able to move a very tiny, tiny joystick to be able to drive my wheelchair. So anybody out there listening, if you see me, please come up, please say hello, but don't try and shake my right hand. That should be bad news. But, yeah, so essentially because of that, I'm not able to move my arms and my legs, obviously. But, as you can tell, I'm able to talk just fine. And thankfully, in poker, verbal is binding. So, I'm able to play poker. It's I've said it over and over and over again. It really is one of the truest forms of competition somebody can take part in. Obviously, there is some luck involved, but my argument is there is luck involved in any sport that you play. If you play football and you're a running back, you need to be a little bit lucky that the linebacker doesn't plug the hole that you're trying to run through before you get there. If you're a basketball player, same type of idea. You need to make sure that the defender doesn't plug the lane before you get there. And poker is the same way. You can be better than people. That doesn't mean you can't be beat. Football has the any given Sunday rule, and poker has that same rule. If it weren't for suckouts, then nobody would play. But it's one of those things where all you have to do is outthink your opponent. And I enjoy that. I like the challenge of trying to understand what somebody else is thinking and trying to figure out what's going on in their head, and then how can we exploit that? How can we take advantage of that? Whether that's through bluffing or value, or whatever it is. And that just really, really intrigues me, and it's always drawn me to it. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. Maybe they don't articulate it like that, but I think that my draw to poker is the same draw that a lot of people have.
Well, that's great stuff, man. We're on the line with KL Cleeton at HighHands89 on Twitter. So you just barely get there in time for day 1C. Real curious, man. The drive-in. What are you thinking when you're coming into Vegas? I mean, it's a long way from Effington, Illinois, right? How do the two compare?
Well, Effingham is a tiny town. It is about 10,000 people. We have nothing here. And Vegas is just all glitz and all glamour. You know, I mean, we come in through the southerly route. We decided to not go through the mountains to make it a little bit easier in the van. So we're coming in, you know, through that southerly route, and we crest, you know, that last little, not mountain, but large hill, if you will. And, you know, you look down in the valley, and there it is. You know, you can see the strip, and you can see the stratosphere on one end, and you see, you know, all the hotel towers for Aria and the Bellagio and Caesars and just all these iconic hotels in the distance. And I did a little video. You couldn't see it very well because, you know, cell phones and haze, and it's hard to see it, but it's kind of like overwhelming almost when you first see it and when you're going through, because when it's at a distance, you're kind of not sure what to look at. But when you're in it, you're definitely not sure what to look at, because there's something to see everywhere. Now, it would have put in even 100 times more information overload if we would have come in at night with all the lights and whatnot. But it's one of those things where probably some people will be like, this is neat to be here, but I want to go home. But for me personally, I would love to live there. I think that would be amazing. There's always something to do. There's always action. There's always fun and excitement, and there's always people from all over the world that are coming in that you have the opportunity to meet and interact with and learn about their life and what they do and how they live, and that really intrigues me. And I think that's another reason why I love poker so much. I don't get to play live very often, but when I do, you always meet somebody interesting. You always, you know, are seated next to somebody that you would never in a million years have met, but poker has brought you together, and now you have a chance to interact and learn about them and understand, you know, life from a different perspective. And I think that's really important. I think people need to engage other people and learn about them so that they have a better vision of the world. Poker allows you to do that. But back to your question about Vegas, I think the only way to describe it is sensory overload in the best possible way.
Absolutely. Well said, man. Hey, the city is electric, just like the WSOP. Speaking of meeting interesting people, you meet the other two winners, you meet Daniel, and all of a sudden, your main event quest begins. Now, day one, take us through the 4 days, your experience, and I'm wondering, first of all, how long did it take you to settle in and realize that, hey, this isn't surreal, this is the real thing, and I can compete with these guys?
You know, it's such a deep tournament in the beginning, and it's such a slow structure that I just really, honestly, I just had a plan. I'm going to come in here and I'm not going to do anything out of line on day one. My entire goal was just survive day one. Don't put yourself in weird spots. And what that came down to was being able to project 2 and 3 streets down the road and figure out, okay, what may or may not happen in this hand if we choose to play this. And so I won't say I made very many tight folds. I don't think very many situations came up that would have prompted that. But I maybe did choose not to three-bet some thoughts where maybe I would have if it would have been a different structure. You know, just because it ends up putting myself in some weird spots where I don't want to play a massive pot out of position with 10-9 suited when I can just avoid this thought and then maybe pick up, some value with a really good hand a little bit later on down the road. Because, hell, you just sold the entirety of day one. You did not play a single hand and still end the day with something like 80 big blinds or something like that, which is absolutely insane. So my entire goal was just to survive day one. We did a little bit better than survive. We ended up bagging something like 60K. So definitely chipped up a little bit, which is, I think, a really good result. And also, I kind of got placed at a landmine table almost, in my opinion, because I had Barstool Nate at my table for day one, the entire day. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Nate was either the chip leader of my day one or damn close to the chip leader of my day one. So I'm not saying that I would have gotten in a pot and been busted by him. But when you have a dude that has just a monster sack on day one of the World Series of Poker main event, if you can survive and not just survive but have a little bit more than starting sack, that's kind of a win in my book, I think.
Absolutely. It gives you confidence. And now day 2, you survive. You're getting into day 3. You're approaching the money. You say you ran well. But this whole experience must have been so special. Not only the fact that you're running deep, you're playing well, you're catching some cards, but your dad is right there helping you, enjoying it. I mean, you talk about competitive. I saw him fist bumping.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just really quickly, you talked about my day 2. I have to say, my day 2 table was just full of crushers. It was a little bit ridiculous, honestly. I was like, how bad can we run on this day 2 table as far as how good everyone was? And there's an interesting hand I'd like to talk about in there a little bit later if we had time.
Go ahead, talk about it.
It was on the vlog, but it was my most memorable hand as far as actual play. Obviously, the Claude Kings on day 3 was really memorable for obvious reasons. But on day 2, on my table with absolute crushers, I had a bracelet winner on my right from this year. I had a couple more German pros. I had Michael Acevedo, who's a really good young player, on my direct right. He's got a couple million, I believe, in live cashes already in his life. And then across the table, I happen to have Harrison Gimbel, which anybody knows, Harrison Gimbel is kind of like an end boss online, just sicko, absolute crusher. And we get into a spot where I'm in the big blind with Jack 7 of clubs, and he is in the 9 seat, and I'm in the 4 seat, so he would have been like in my cutoff or so. And he opens, and I decided to defend with suited Jack. I had been folding my big blind way too often, not because I've been too tight. I just have really, really terrible hands. So I was like, all right, this is good enough for me to defend. The flop is 10-4-4 with 2 clubs. It's a really good flop for me, obviously. I flop a flush draw, and I have a ton of 4s in my range, and also a bunch of 10s as well. So I figure this is a really good spot for me to check raise. If I do get called on the check raise, I have a ton of equity, either to make a hand or to bluff it off of something a little bit later. And sometimes I just take it down with a check raise on the flop, and I chip up a little bit. So I check, he fires a standard C bet. I go ahead and raise it up 2.5 times his raise. He thinks for a few seconds and calls. The turn is an offsuit 10, so now it's a double paired board with the flush draw on board, which is really good for me. Like I said, this is a spot where I can have just the absolute. You're going to have Will Kassouf on Tuesday. This is the spot where I can have the absolute coconuts, and I can rip it as well. So I'm actually really excited about this opportunity. I figure if I had a really good hand, I would check here in order to let him, make it look like I was just making a move on the flop, and now I'm kind of just giving it up so I can check, call, and then decide what to do on the river with all of my hands, my value and my bluffs as well. So I checked. He checks it back. I think he recognizes that this is going to be a weird spot for him. If he bets here, because it's going to bloat the pot, and then we're playing a really big pot on the river. So he checks it back the river, which is, I guess, this is now my thing. I didn't realize it was my thing, but this is now my thing. The river is a banana, as I mentioned in the book. It does not matter at all. I believe it was like the three of diamonds or something like that, maybe. And I decided to fire here. I fire like 35%. Obviously, I have air. I have nothing. But I can rep a really good hand here. And if I get called, I'm not too upset because now they know I'm capable of making a move. And it might help me get paid off later on. And if I get a fold, then I pick up a big pot, and I can still choose to show my bluff and get the same result where I might get paid later on. So I fire 35%, something like that, and he tanks and tanks. And he looks at me, and he says, if I show what you show, well, I take that deal all day because I have air, and I want to guarantee that I win this pot. So he folds and shows, and he folds pocket queens. He folds pocket queens. So he had queens and tens on the river, and I'm assuming he put me on a 4 exactly. And I flip over jack high, and he looks at me and says, "Nice hand." And the gentleman in the one seat who I had been friendly with all day, he looked at me and he goes, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do know who that is." And I looked at the table and I go, "I'm done with the main event. I'd love to throw. I'll see you guys later." Yeah, so it was a very cool experience. I will admit I did needle him a little bit throughout the rest of the day. It wasn't because I was trying to be a dick. It was because I could tell he was just a little bit irked by the fact that he folded that hand there. And I thought maybe if the opportunity came up, I might be able to get the rest of that stack where he might try and bluff me back with, whenever I just happened to have it. It didn't end up happening, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to get the rest of it. But I will admit, I was being a little bit of an asshole. I needled him just a little bit, but it was for a reason. So hopefully he will forgive me, and we can be friendly if we ever run across each other again in the future.
Oh, I'm sure he's a fan. Hey, listen, it's all part of the main event. It goes both ways. You'll get needled one day too, right? Listen,
exactly.
You make the money. It's a big thrill for any poker player. You gained a lot of attention. When you get into the money, when you finally bust, what was the moment between you and your father like? That must have been special because he's there sweating your bluffs too, man.
Yeah, actually he said to several people, "Man, I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing two people because obviously the way that we do it is whenever he shows me that cards, he inadvertently just has to see the hand because he has to make sure that his hand isn't blocking my view of the hand. So it's not like he's looking to see what I have. He's looking to make sure I can see what I have, if that makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, he was like, "Man, I have to have a good poker face too," and he was sweating bullets on a couple of the moves I was making. But he was yeah. I don't know if you can hear him, but he was like, "What the hell are you doing, man?" He's a bit tighter than I am. I'm a bit looser than my old man. But no, honestly, immediately after we busted, I think he was a bit more upset than I was. Obviously, I play tournaments a bunch. I'm playing 12, 14, 16, even more tournaments a day whenever I'm on, the full grind. And So I'm used to, hey, that's how it goes. And he was a little bit more upset, but I think once once 15, 20 minutes passed, and, all the support on the internet kind of started flowing in with my tweet and whatnot, I think he kind of got to the place where I was initially, which was, good game. This was this is a blast. I've said it on the stream the last few days, but no better time has ever been had by anyone ever than the time that we had in Vegas. It was so fun. It's hard to come up with adjectives and descriptive words that do it justice, because it's something that's, I think, so unusual and so out of the ordinary for me anyway, that it's hard for me to articulate just how amazing the entire experience was. And I would be saying the exact same thing even if we hadn't cashed. If I hadn't cashed, I would be saying the exact same words. I can guarantee it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're batting 1,000, man. You lived the dream, as you mentioned. You handled yourself with grace. You're around the Rio with a smile. Your dad, too. You talk about coconuts and bananas, man. Your WSOP experience was a William Cassu fruit salad, buddy. I mean, you got it all in. This is the biggest poker tournament in the world. You mentioned it right off the top. It's electric with all the chip movement, all the people talking. Too many times people are sulking around those hallways, but you did it the right way, my friend.
Yeah, and I just want to say this really quickly, if I may, before we wrap up. Poker is supposed to be fun. It's a game. I'm going to always say this and always try to live by it as well. If you're not having fun playing poker, then don't play poker. Period. That's just all there is to it. Obviously, you're allowed to be upset if you lose. You're allowed to be frustrated if you get sucked out on. But what you're not allowed to do is be salty about it. You're not allowed to just be, let it stew and let it, build up and whatnot. You have to just understand that's part of it. And what you can't do either is be mean to other players because somebody else gets lucky. This is a game. It's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to make it fun for everyone. I'm a recreational player. I would love to be a professional, but I'm not. I'm not good enough. I understand that. Maybe one day I might be, but right now I'm not. And so what I hope with my experience, I know they made it this way for me. I had a blast. I hope that any recreational players that I played with at the name had fun because of the experience that they had at the table, just like I did. I tried to do that as well. I was chatty and having a good time and talking with people. So, if somebody out there that doesn't get to do this ever, like I don't ever get to do this, had a good time because of maybe the table talk or whatever, and they happen to be at my table, then I think it was a WSOP main event job well done, just for me personally, because poker's supposed to be fun, man. Let's keep it fun.
Absolutely, and listen, man, it was unbelievable. I felt like I was part of the ride. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I think part of the deal that you had with Daniel was that he got 50%, and I'm wondering, did you play him heads up for it, or what happened there?
No, that would have been dope, wouldn't it? That would have been perfect. Yeah, the deal was half the profit plus take back. So I didn't quite min cash. I made the first, I don't call them ladders. We are ADA compliant around here. I call them ramps of success. So I made the first ramp of success up to about 16K. So the first 10K went back to him, and then we chopped up that 16K, or that extra 6K of sweet profit. So it was a really neat opportunity for me. A lot of people said whenever I jammed those sevens, oh, why did you re-jam sevens over a tight under the gun 3X and this and that and yada yada yada? Well, the reason is because I wanted to go deep. I didn't want to I didn't want to just page up. I wanted to either make the final 2 tables or die trying, if you will. So, I was willing to take high variance spots once we got into the money. I had reached my goal. I was able to say I made the money in the biggest poker tournament in the world. It wasn't about the money. Honestly, it doesn't say that. It was about being able to say and state the fact, hey, if you go to my Hendon knob, A, I now have one, and B, it says that I made the money in the biggest poker tournament in the world. And once I achieved that goal, it was all about the goal of making it to the final 2 tables, final table, or bust, basically.
Well, you had a great trip. You had a great experience. You did very well. You inspired a lot of people, man, and I really appreciate your time. KL Cleeton at HighHands89 on Twitter. You got to check him out on Twitch, twitch.tv/HighHands89. KL, thank you so much, man. Much appreciated.
Hey, thank you very much, and thanks for everybody for listening.